guys, I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. I want to talk about something that is becoming more concerning, and a lot of people don't even see it. And I know people that watch my videos probably have already fallen for this psychological operation, and you don't even know it. And so I felt that it was very important for me to talk about it, especially being that I've talked about like situations in Antarctica, that things that may or may not have happened. Well, we're pretty sure about certain things that happen in Antarctica, but this is much bigger because it's actually a psychological operation. It's not like, oh, lost civilization, something happened, da 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 da. This is an orchestrated psychological operation that's being perpetrated upon the people that believe that they've taken the red pill and they're woke, or not in that sense of woke, but they've become the awakened ones, okay, or whatever. But the truth is, it's actually a psychological operation. What am I talking about? Tartaria, the Mudflood. It's a psychological operation. And I know people are already going to be like, no, I mean, I've seen the pictures. I've done the research myself. I'm going to explain to you how deep this is. And the reason that I am addressing this is because I just came across it on TikTok, and I had no idea how vast and how extreme it is on TikTok. Why is it important that it's so big on TikTok? Who runs TikTok? That would be China. And the thing is, I'd already figured this out a long time ago, that this whole situation with Tartaria actually is a psychological operation to get Western people to actually believe that their ancestors didn't build anything, that their ancestors just inherited things that the Tartarians built. And who would the Tartarians actually be? Well, for hundreds, if not a few thousands, well, at least hundreds of years, Western people called the place between Russia and China Tartaria, or the Great Tartarian Empire, whatever it was called. It's called a few different things, but that's what people know it as. And so that these conspiracy theorists are actually looking to as, oh, they're the ones that built all of our civilization, is Russia and China. And I know, because because whenever I started figuring this out, I'm going to tell you how I figured this out. I figured it out because they began teaching it at Chinese universities. And there's this channel called Serpentine ZA, and it's Winston and Matthew on the ADV China channel or whatever. And they're two Western guys. One's from South Africa and one is from America. They both live back in America now. They lived in China for 10, 15 years. They speak fluent Chinese. Their wives are Chinese. They moved back to the US when things started getting crazy. So they know all the things that were actually, it wasn't like they just went there as tourists, okay? They actually immersed themselves in the culture. And they began seeing these things. But I don't think that they've ever, connected the Tartarian issue with this. And I started seeing this, and then seeing that on TikTok it's allowed to go so viral unchecked. Like, people are like, oh wow, yeah, maybe this is all true. Maybe all these Europeans just came to the West. Not even just the West, Europe itself. That's how far people are going with this. That the Europeans didn't build anything. Heck, you go to Ancient Aliens, it wasn't even humans that did it. It was probably the Ancient Aliens. And when you get down to the psychological aspect of this, it all boils down to you couldn't really be intelligent enough or capable enough to build these amazing cathedrals and these buildings and waterways and canals. Your ancestors couldn't possibly be that intelligent. The Egyptians didn't actually build the pyramids. It must have been aliens. Do you realize how sinister it really is? What it's really telling us at a base level is you couldn't possibly have done any of this. Your ancestors didn't do any of this. It was just these magical beings from a different planet that did these things. So you should welcome technology that is going to come and save you. This is all boiling down to advanced technology. And see, that's something that's wrapped up in the whole Tartarian Mudflood thing. They say that the spires on all cathedrals and all these old buildings were actually a way to get free energy. And see, we're missing out. We're missing out on such amazing technology. People don't say it that way, but they say it in such a way that it was this amazing one world government. But it wasn't really a government. It was a one world paradise, you see. And everybody was connected with this amazing technology that you no longer have. But you know who had it? The Tartarians. They were so amazing. The Russians and the Chinese. The communists? Yeah, well, they weren't communists then. It was all about love is love, sharing. Oh, you mean like socialism and communism? No. Don't look at it like that, because then you'll see right through it. You see, if they would have said it was the Great Russian Empire or the Great Chinese Empire, people wouldn't have actually taken the bait. They would have been like, hold on, this isn't adding up. But if you used Tartarian, it was just enough to get people to think, maybe it is. Maybe they did just come over here and all these things were just already here. And our ancestors really did nothing. And that's the sinister part. They want you to believe that your ancestors didn't do any of this, and actually we could all just go back to this one world where everything was just so perfect. Doesn't it sound beautiful? It actually even has the little green agenda, the climate change agenda woven into it, because it's like, oh, well, it was this free energy and free, all of these things. The Industrial Revolution was actually just this evil plot. And you could believe that or not believe it, of that aspect of it, but see, that's the thing. They do add in certain truths. And even the people, I wholeheartedly believe that the people that are talking about these Tartarian issues believe it. I don't believe that they know that this is even a psychological operation. They do not. In my mind, they do not know. And that's what makes this one so powerful. Because it's way more powerful when the people that are espousing it believe it. Like a cult. And when anyone pushes back on this idea, they're attacked. I believe that will happen in my comments, because people believe that they have taken the red pill. And now they realize that everything we've ever known has all been a lie. That's directly out of the Marxist playbook. Get them to delete all of their history. Rewrite their history. This is cancel culture. This is no different than cancel culture and the 1619 Project and all of these things that we openly realize are, whoa, those are kind of crazy, right? It's like, we know that that's not exactly what happened. You say some true things about the slave trade and everything, but then you started adding all this crazy stuff. That's what this is. Yeah, there was a place called Tartaria, the Great Tartarian Empire, Attila the Hun. I mean, you could put in, there was amazing people that came out of that area, but when you actually do the history of it and you realize how truly savage many of the Tartarians were to the Europeans, and then you kind of are like, wait, what? This is, and who really would be it? You know, that would be the Middle East, Russia, and China. And now all of a sudden we have all these Western people that are like acting like those are the people that invented everything. They're the reason we have skyscrapers. They're the reasons that we have cathedrals. Those cathedrals were actually not even built by your ancestors. Yeah, they're beautiful and all, but your ancestors were way too dumb to do it. It was China. What? There's actually a professor in China, multiple, that are teaching this, that Western civilization is all really just made up. And actually, a lot of the things were just built or rebuilt in the 18th and 19th century. And before that, it was just this dark gloom of nothingness until, you know, they were enlightened, or they traveled to the East and got all of this knowledge. You see, when you put it like that, people will question it. Like, whoa, that sounds crazy. Were there mud floods? Yeah, we have mud floods today. Just search for it. You can watch videos of mud floods up into the 40s, 50s in Tennessee. If the Tennessee Valley Authority would not have went into Tennessee, Kentucky, all of those areas, Tennessee wouldn't be what Tennessee is today. Western Virginia, all of those places. What they did was they made this huge plan, because what happened was the farmers kept farming the land, but then they'd have these rains and everything would be washed out. But what our ancestors did, and what our, you know, as flawed as all of these presidents and our government entities are, they came up with a plan. Hey, why don't we put these valleys and these locks and these dams and all of these things, and when we do that, we'll be able to control the food production, and not in that way, but we'll be able to, because I mean it was becoming like a barren wasteland in Tennessee. They would put the crops in and it would just run off because of how things were. And so the Tennessee Valley Authority came through, gave tons of people jobs, and they started to prosper. And that's essentially the story of the United States in general. You know, there's people, and they came up with plans, and they did these things. And that's the story of Europe. I mean, it's the story of most of the Western world. You don't just say, forget it, and let's move to a different country. They did do that to come to the United States, but that was, you know, kind of the one time. It's not like, oh, well, my country is just terrible, I'm moving to Canada. You know, they're like, let's figure this out, and we're going to make it work. And that's why, you know, Tennessee and much of the South prospered with, and then they did the same type of things in Kansas and all these places where they had the Dust Bowl. You know, they realized, hey, we can't just keep planting all of the same thing and we're going to end up with a Dust Bowl. Okay? So that all of these planning and how they controlled, in a sense, they controlled the rivers and the waterways so that we could have the things that we have today. If you look back even 100 years, at least 200 years, the waterways, the Mississippi River didn't look like it does now, because it's more controlled now, you know, and that way people could build and plant crops and things like that. And that's why the United States became so prosperous. But so quickly is because they started doing those type of. But back to what I was saying. Do mud floods happen? Yes. Do earthquakes happen? Yeah. Do all of these things happen? Absolutely. But is there a big lie behind the mud flood Tartarian agenda? Absolutely. And it is a Marxist, one world, leftist, the same exact thing that a lot of these people will say they're totally against. They won't even see it. That's why this psychological operation, in my opinion, is one of the best. Because it was so many people that actually do research fell for. I mean, at the beginning I did. I was like, oh, this is really super interesting. But then I started kind of thinking, I'm like, wait, it's that, it's not even 11 because it's so much. It's like, things seem like they're going well, and then they say, oh, there's no pictures. There's no pictures of these canals being built or these buildings, the World Fair, all of these things. And then you actually look into it and you're like, no, we have pictures of all of these things from the beginning of the construction of it to the end, But again, the reason I'm actually talking about this is because it's so sinister in that it wants to erase our ancestry, our history, Western civilization. And with all of the things going on, what if something crazy does happen, like a pole reversal happens, and let's say only the young people survive, and then they've been watching all this crap on TikTok thinking that Western people really couldn't build anything. What are we gonna do? Well, let's just hitch it up with China and Russia. I know that might sound far-fetched, but is it? Really? Is it? It's not. It's really, and if you look at what's going on right now, it looks a lot like what was going on right around the Black Death and the plague. And if you look into that, they're pretty sure the plague, the Black Death, came from Tartaria. It's almost kind of funny how crazy it is. But I just think it's really important to talk about it. And I'm going to share a channel that I came across after figuring all of this out, because I was like, somebody else has got to have figured this out already. And it seems like there have been a couple. And so they go into more of the details of it. They show some of the pictures and things like that. Things that I don't really want to go into, because I wanted to go into the psychological operations aspect of it and how dangerous it is getting. I mean, the number of views these videos are getting on TikTok is astonishing. And TikTok loves that. China loves that. China loves that Western people are essentially saying that their countries weren't really built by their ancestors, but by these secret Tartarians, which would be essentially Chinese and Russians. It does sound very crazy, and I mean, there's people that have gone to the extent of saying that, there was all these babies just brought over here and they just raised them like a farm. I mean, that's a little silly. Hold on. People that believe these things, they don't have their family history, or they've never actually done work. I see a lot of these people saying it's impossible to build these things, and it's impossible to make these canals and all of these things, and everything's just been deleted and erased, and that's impossible. Look, this is my ancestry right here. I can go back all the way to the Merovingian dynasty. Clovis, the king, the Duke of Franks, the king of the Ostrogoths, all the way to the 400s. That's how far I can trace my ancestry back. And I'm sure a lot of people could if they actually take the time to try and do that. These people weren't just made up. And it goes into detail of which properties they owned and the castles and the property, whatever it is. And then, like my ancestors came here before America was a country, here in Louisiana. It's bizarre to me that so many people have, latched onto this conspiracy theory, throwing all of our ancestors under the bus. As if they did, like all the Irishmen that built, they were called navvies, the ones that built the amazing canals and the tunnels and all that in England and Ireland. Here, a lot of people don't realize that when the Irish came here, they were still doing the same work that they were doing over there. They were the ones, they had the knowledge. There was 100,000 of them working on each canal, or whatever the case may be, whatever the issue is, or the Spanish. If your ancestry comes from Spain or France, which mine come from France, obviously. Whatever role they had, like the Spanish and the Portuguese, building missions here in the 1500s. Most people think that there was nothing here. When the Pilgrims got here, they were like the first white people or whatever. That's not true. There were already missions here. There was, people all over the Americas, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the French. But a lot of times, and that's the thing, we are a lot of times told history from an English, point of view. Like the people that went to the colonies. Even my son right now, one of my youngest son, they're learning about the colonies and all that. And it is kind of funny because he's actually in French immersion. And so it's like, you would think that they would kind of tell it from a French point of view, especially here in Louisiana, and they don't. They used to, but they don't anymore. They tell it from an English, the colonial point of view, as if people just went to the colonies and that was kind of, that's where it started and that's where it was, when that's not true. I mean, the first American city was St. Augustine. The first one that has continued to be a settlement is St. Augustine, Florida. But anyway, I don't want to ramble off into that, but when you actually look into it and get yourself out of the whole, the world fairs were this and the mud floods of this, and you'll see what they're actually doing. You'll see how truly sinister it really is. And it saddens me that people that believe that they're getting truth they're not actually even questioning the truth that they are being told. That they're just all kind of parroting the same truth narrative, when the truth is they're allowing their ancestors to be thrown under the bus, and it's really sad. It's kind of like I hate to laugh, but I mean, it truly was funny when England has become so desperate to fit Black history into their history that they have now essentially deemed Septimius Severus, the Roman Italian emperor, they now act like he was Black. He was born in Africa, in northern Africa, but he was definitely Italian. I mean, we know that. We have statues and paintings of him. There's literally no ambiguity. It would be like in 200 years, people saying that Elon Musk was African, Black, because that's what they're saying, Black, not African. Elon Musk is African. but he's not black. But you see, that's what people want to erase history with, whatever method it is, whether they want to replace it with the Chinese, the Russians, the Tartarians, same people. You know, it's all about, and that's the Marxist playbook. Delete your history, erase it all, and we've all seen that clip of that video of that guy saying, "You're a white male, you have no culture," you know, and it's just kind of like, what? It's not, first of all, it's not about being white or whatever. They want to delete Western history, no matter if your ancestors came from Africa, France, Spain, England, Ireland, Scotland. It doesn't matter. They want it gone. That way they can rebuild their utopia. And, you know, a lot of people know that about Marxism, but this is a blind spot that many people don't see. So anyway, this has been long enough. I'm sorry about all that, but it's something I just really had to talk about. So as y'all know, my channel is completely demonetized, and if you would like to help support me, I'll put links in the description. If not, that's fine. Just like, share, leave a comment even. Any comment helps with the algorithm. Actually, I am trying to get my channel remonetized, although I've done that 3 times and it hasn't worked, but I'm going to still try. They said I have to get a certain amount of views, about whatever. We'll see. They keep denying it, so I imagine they'll deny it this time. Anyway, again, I'm going to leave a couple of links of videos of people that have shown more information on this, if you'd like to see that. So